Hello and welcome everyone. Let's say that your pharmaceutical organization has just developed a breakthrough, a new healthcare innovation, or maybe even a life-saving or a life-changing medication. Naturally, everyone is excited. You prepare for the submission, confident that the regulators in your country will be as eager as you to register it immediately. Why not? The patients need it, the science is strong, the trial results are very clear, and the potential for patients is undeniable. But then comes the surprise. Instead of the usual regulatory questions you are expecting, you are faced with an entirely new set of challenges. Questions you are not used to hear before. Questions about cost effectiveness, about real world value, about whether this innovation really delivers enough benefit to justify its price. And suddenly you realize that you don't have answers and that the situation is not as easy as you thought. Unfortunately, this is the reality many pharmaceutical organizations are facing when they aim to register even breakthrough innovations and life-saving ones, and also vaccines. And it's getting worse every day because the healthcare budgets are getting tighter every day. Over the last 30 years in the industry, I have noticed, and many of you agree or may agree, that our approach as an industry has hardly changed or hasn't changed at all. When it comes to registering new medications, we still depend on the same traditional strategies we used decades ago. And we tend to ignore the fact that the language of our regulators in healthcare and those healthcare decision makers in general has already changed dramatically. Today, regulators and decision makers, they have their conversations framed around health technology assessment. Even in those countries where health technology assessment hasn't been fully implemented yet. And the principles of health technology assessments are already shaping the questions, the criteria, and the expectations of these regulators. And that is exactly why in this episode, we will focus on health technology assessment. By understanding it, you and your teams can begin to overcome many of the obstacles that are blocking access today. And so you can bring more innovative medications to the patients who truly need them. Let's take a closer look at our region, the emerging markets. In so many of our countries, the best medications, genuine breakthroughs that could transform patients' care significantly have remained unregistered for nearly a decade. Think about it for a moment. 10 years have passed, and despite the clear unmet medical need, despite patient advocacy programs, despite access programs designed to open doors, these therapies still haven't reached the people who need them most. Why? The uncomfortable truth is that we as a pharmaceutical industry, we are still speaking the same language it has been used for decades. We continue to rely on the same old approaches. Discounts, patient access programs, value-added services, compassionate use programs. These are all valuable, yes, but in fact, they are no longer enough. What we may fail to recognize is the reality faced by the decision makers inside the healthcare authorities. They are under enormous pressure when they recommend the adoption of a new therapy. They are accountable upwards to their superiors, to ministries of health and finance as well, to governments that are trying to balance multiple national priorities. They cannot simply say the drug is innovative, let's approve it. This cannot happen anymore. They need to justify the decision with certain structured metrics evidence of cost effectiveness, budget impact, and comparative value data. And here is the painful point, if I can say so. No matter what value added services you design, no matter how attractive the offers are or the price is, unless you provide those structured metrics in a scientific way and credible way, the decision maker cannot defend the decision to approve your innovation or your medication. The result that innovation stalls and patients wait and unmet patient needs remain unmet. I know it's a sad story, isn't it? But it is not rare. It's happening every day. And not just in the emerging markets, but now even in some of the wealthiest nations, countries with the resources to afford innovation are still holding back. They no longer want stories of innovation alone. They want structured health technology assessments. Now, let's imagine a very different story. What if instead of waiting for the difficult questions to come, you walk into the room ready? You walk into the room of the regulators prepared with answer before the decision makers even ask. What if, rather than simply presenting the value on the studies, you show them exactly how it will benefit their healthcare system, how it compares not only to competitors, but to what they are already using today. Let's say that a health authority under pressure to achieve certain national milestone in fighting against cancer. And this is very common. They want to extend survival, yes, to reduce the hospital admissions and demonstrate progress to their citizens and to the world. Now imagine that you present your new therapy and not just as another drug, but as a solution that helps them to reach that milestone. You show them with credible evidence, of course, structured assessments and cost-effective models that they can make the therapy available to all patients across different cities in their country, across rural regions, regardless where the patients are. And still, they will achieve the budget sustainability. What if you place on their desk the data that proves not only that your medication improves lives, but that it also saves more money in the long run by preventing complications, avoiding costly hospitalization, and reducing the overall burden on the system? At that moment, the conversation changes. It's no longer a defensive discussion about only cost effectiveness ratio or incremental quality adjusted life years. Now it becomes a conversation about national value, system efficiency, and long-term sustainability. Yes, when you frame your innovation as a tool that helps decision makers achieve their goals, whether that is meeting cancer targets, improving chronic disease control, or reducing health inequities, you are no longer negotiating. You are partnering. You are no longer asking for approval. You are actually helping them to solve a problem that they already own. This is the difference. And this is the power of health technology assessment. If used strategically, health technology assessment is not only a box to tick for reimbursement. It's a language of partnership, a bridge that connects your innovation to the broader vision of healthcare leaders. And when you approach it in that way, the likelihood of access, real, sustainable, equitable access multiplies. So, my friends, the choice is very simple. We as pharmaceutical industry and healthcare professional can keep waiting to be asked questions we cannot answer, or we can arrive with the answers that really inspire confidence, demonstrate the impact, make the decision makers able to see us as allies in achieving their national healthcare ambitions. So what is health technology assessment? Health technology assessment is a structured process, a framework used to evaluate health interventions from multiple perspectives. It looks not only at the science behind the treatment, but also at its clinical effectiveness, cost effectiveness, impact on patients, and on ethical matters as well. Health technology assessment is a very comprehensive framework that blends science, economics, ethics, and patients' opinion and perspectives. And this is a fast becoming science. The only credible way to decide which health technologies should we adopt and reimburse. And let's clarify something very important before we go further. When we say technology in health technology assessments, we are not just talking about digital tools or artificial intelligence platforms, completely different. In the technology in the context of the health technology assessment refers to any intervention in healthcare. That includes a new medication, a surgical device, diagnostic test, a supportive program, a vaccine, even a public health program, or a new model of care are in the scope of health technology assessments. In other words, anything that changes how patients are diagnosed, treated, or supported falls under this umbrella. The broader the definition is critical. Why? Because health technology assessment is not only about asking what this intervention, if this intervention works. No, it's more than this. It asks for far more powerful questions like, does this intervention improve outcomes compared to what we already have? Does it add meaningful value for patients and for the healthcare systems? And is it worth the cost given the limited budget every health system must work within? These are not academic questions. They are new questions that can decide whether a life-saving medication is approved or not, reimbursed or not, and delivered to patients who need it most in the country, with equity parameters established. This is why health technology assessment is so often called the language of healthcare decision making. It translates clinical results into practical, financial, and ethical terms that governments, payors, and regulators can act upon. Let's have an example. A clinical trial may prove that a new treatment reduces hospitalization or hospital admissions by, let's say, 20%. That's impressive. But health technology assessment takes it a step further. It will ask, what does that reduction mean for the national budget? How many lives are improved and at what price? Does the investment make sense compared to funding other health priorities? That's another very important question. Globally, we have seen health technology assessment emerge first in high-income countries like UK, Canada, and other multiple countries actually in Europe and even in Asia. But now the wave reaching emerging markets started. Ministries of health, national payers, and regulatory authorities in these regions, emerging markets, are beginning to realize that without this structured approach, without this health technology assessment, they cannot sustain innovation, nor can they guarantee fair and equitable access to care. Let's pause for a moment and look at the environment in which health technology assessment is growing. This will help us to truly understand why it's becoming so powerful. We need to understand the pressures weighing down on healthcare systems across the world, not only in the emerging markets. The truth is healthcare everywhere is facing a perfect storm. Have you seen the movie, The Perfect Storm? It's a very nice one of my favorites. Costs are rising at an unexpected rate. Populations are aging. And with that comes more chronic diseases, diabetes, cardiovascular illness, cancer, neurodegenerative conditions. At the same time, science is advancing rapidly, bringing forward revolutionary but still extremely expensive treatments. For example, cell and gene therapies, precision medications, oncology drugs, immunotherapies. These are all new innovations. Now, these innovations are life-changing. But let's be somehow realistic. They are also budget breaking. A single course of gene therapy can cost $500,000, sometimes even more. Multiply that by hundreds or thousands of patients, and you quickly realize that no healthcare system, no healthcare decision maker, no matter how wealthy they are, can simply approve every new innovation without the framework to guide such tough decisions. Add to this the rising expectations of the society, the patients. Patients are today better informed than years ago. Families are more engaged. Advocacy groups are becoming louder, and everyone is demanding faster access to the latest treatments. And rightly, so people want hope. They want better outcomes. They want innovation. But the question is, who pays for this innovation? And how do we decide which therapies provide real value for money? Without health technology assessment, we will continue being in this cycle. Governments and payers are already under pressure, as we mentioned. Healthcare budgets are not limitless. They compete with education, infrastructure, defense, and other national priorities. Every dollar spent on one treatment is a dollar not spent on something else. That's how the decision makers think. And in the emerging market, the tension is even sharper. Budgets are smaller compared to the other countries. Populations are growing at a faster pace. And this is where health technology assessment becomes indispensable in these markets or in these countries, in the emerging markets. It's the structured response, and probably the only structured response to an unsustainable reality. It allows decision makers to weigh evidence and say, yes, this treatment worth investing in because it improves outcomes significantly and makes economic sense. Or, on the other hand, no, the therapy cannot be prioritized right now because the benefit doesn't justify the cost compared to other pressing needs. This is the language of health technology assessment. That is to say that data from clinical trials are no longer enough to answer these questions, are no longer enough to make your healthcare system endorse your innovation. Healthcare technology assessment demands much more. It demands real-world evidence, cost-utility analysis, budget impact models, patient-reported outcomes. And looking to the future, without healthcare technology, the negotiation table will be lost before it even begins. Let's take new oncology drugs as another example. They are actually new oncology drugs, they are introduced almost every year. Some, they extend survival by month, others by years. Without health technology assessment, the discussion becomes political and emotional and often ends in delays. And there are very famous worldwide examples. It will end in delay, the conversation will end in delay, confusion, and unequal access in some cases. But with health technology assessment, the decision is grounded in structured evidence. What does the drug cost per year of life gained? How does that compare to the existing treatments? What is the burden on the system for the coming few years? And what is the benefit for patients? And will all patients have access to it, or we will have access only, or will give access only to certain geography or certain category? So the global pressure on healthcare system is not just a financial crisis, it's a decision-making crisis. And health technology assessment has emerged as the only credible solution to balance the scales between innovation, affordability, and fairness. So what's the takeaway for the pharmaceutical industry? Price constraints are real, and they are here to stay. Clinical trial evidence is no longer enough. You must build health technology assessment evidence early. Registration and reimbursement are merging. Health technology assessment is becoming a requirement, not an option. Emerging markets are adopting these frameworks, and only those who prepare today will have access tomorrow. On the other hand, I'm always receiving questions, mainly from medical colleagues, about what to study next in order to build our capabilities and stay ahead in the pharmaceutical industry. Well, you have to study this, health technology assessments, because in the future, health technology assessment will be the only language to speak with your customers. But don't misunderstand me, health technology assessment is not only for medical colleagues. It's the capability that must be built across the entire organization. Medical affairs, for example, need it because they frame scientific evidence in the language decision makers understand. On the other hand, market access colleagues, health outcome research teams must master it as well to design credible models and value dossiers. Regulatory colleagues need to anticipate health technology assessment driven requirements in certain countries that now will shape the approval process. Even commercial teams must understand exactly in order to align pricing and reimbursement strategies with payer expectations. And don't be surprised, even clinical development, policy, corporate strategy functions play a very important role in health technology assessment. To make things easier and to ensure that evidence generation meets the realities of access discussions. Building health technology assessment capabilities is not an academic exercise, yes. It's about transforming how pharmaceutical organizations operate. It's a big shift from simply proving that a medicine works to demonstrating why it works, why it's worth adopting in a system under financial and ethical pressure. And that is why all roles in the pharmaceutical industry must be ready to build health technology assessment capabilities. It's the language of the future. And those who can speak it fluently will shape the future of patient access and innovation. What about healthcare professionals, doctors, pharmacists, nurses, and allied health colleagues? You may be wondering, why should health technology assessment matter for me? It's not something for policymaker. Isn't it something for policymaker, economics, or pharmaceutical companies? The answer is no. It matters to you more than you think. Let's break it down. As healthcare professionals, you are the trusted voice of patients, the trusted voice that patients rely on. You are the ones who must explain why a new treatment is available or why it is not. And tomorrow, when a patient walks into your clinic and asks, "Doctor, why can't I access this new therapy? I read about it." You cannot afford to be unprepared. This is the beauty of health technology assessment when it becomes critical. Because today, treatments are no longer judged only on the way they work, as we agreed. They are judged on whether they are worth funding, and you will be expected to understand and communicate those decisions. Let's have an example. You are a physician in an oncology clinic. A breakthrough drug has been approved in Europe or the US. But in your country, it is not covered because the health technology assessment concluded that the cost per quality adjusted life years was too high compared to the benefit. Without understanding of this process, you may feel helpless, caught between the patient needs and the system limitations. But if you understand health technology assessment requirements and frameworks, you can explain the rationale clearly. And you can even advocate for patient access whenever evidence supports it. Or let's think about pharmacists and formulary committees. Every hospital and every health system has to make choices. Which medications will be stocked? Which devices we will purchase? Which diagnostics we will reimburse? They are not random choices. They are decisions grounded in health technology assessment and its principles. If you, as a pharmacist or a clinical leader, understand the framework of health technology assessment, you can contribute meaningful to those discussions. And we have seen other examples where clinicians were pushing the regulatory authorities to have a new medication or a new drug. However, the answer was no, we cannot afford. But actually, it's beyond the fact that the system can afford or not. It has, as we discussed, a structured approach in order to say, no, I will not invest in this new innovation, at least now, or I need more evidence in order to ensure that the investment is the right decision and not on the expenses of another priorities. Let me leave you with this vision. Very soon, health technology assessment will not just be part of the conversation. Actually, it will be the whole conversation. Those who can speak this language fluently will drive the future of healthcare. Those who cannot will find themselves unheard. So think about it. Invest some time to study it deeply. Make it part of your professional career because the future of access, equity, innovation will depend on it. Okay? Thank you very much for your attention and see you next time.